I think Ashley's beat everybody now. She lives in a suburb of New York City. Again, if you're just joining, as we're waiting for people to hop on, in the chat section, go ahead and share where you live now and what year you graduated from UNK. Okay, so I think we're going to go ahead and get started. People will still be hopping on. So wanted to welcome all of you. We're very excited to be doing this and to welcome you to our online conversation with Dr. Peter Longo. Peter, where are you at? Wave to the crowd. We're thrilled to have this opportunity to connect with all of you and with each other, no matter where it is that you live. We want this to be interactive and to have a conversation. Peter is not going to be teaching a class tonight. Although a lot of you have had class with him in the past, he wants this to be interactive, as do we.
Bring us up.
Once we get started, you can either mute or you can unmute so that we can have that conversation and interaction. But if you are unmuted, please be thoughtful about any background noise you might have. You had some homework, some questions that we sent out, and we had several questions submitted ahead of time. If you have a question, please share via the chat function or ask as we go. And we'll get to as many of those questions as we can if time allows. And just an FYI, we are recording this event so that we can view it later. We're going to keep this to about 30 to 40 minutes tonight. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in. No. So Longo is a professor in the political science department. He started teaching at UNK in 1988 and recently served as interim dean for the College of Arts and Sciences. Show of hands, how many of you took at least one class with him? Quite a few. All right. Dr. Longo, the floor is yours.
Well, it's great seeing all of my former students out there. You must have trouble going to sleep at night. And you recall probably how I put you to sleep. So, and I know that's true because I've got 7 grandchildren. And I'm the go-to guy who can get them to sleep. And my attorney sister, Amy, said, well, you've had so much practice putting students to sleep all those years. So gosh, I suppose she's right. So it's great seeing all of you and friends. And we all know what a great place UNK has been for all of us. And I feel very fortunate from the outset to express my gratitude to all the alumni as well as friends in the community who support the university so well. So thank you. Several questions. You know, as I tell my students, I'm doing 2 face-to-face classes just because I thought that was essential. And also, I'm also associate vice chancellor, and that allows me to get out of meetings by saying, I'm sorry, I've got students to attend to and work with. And so it's thank God for the students. And so it's really a difficult time for our students. I'm sure you're all aware of that as I look out, and you know, we're all in masks, but we all get to try to know each other. And particularly our first year students, I tell them no one canceled my graduation. No one canceled my prom, although I couldn't get a date. That's a different story. And so, you know, I really praise this generation of students from the outset that they are so resilient. And I just admire and have the greatest respect for our current student body, and we're going to make it. We're going to make it. And so when when Trish asked me to do this, I think the elephant in the room is this. It hasn't been a very pleasant time to talk about the elections and politics. I mean, so I'm telling you stuff you already know. So if you want to log off now, that's fine. But I want us to think, and in fact, someone asked that question, and I'm going to go to that question. And they were all, I received several questions, and I'm trying to lump them together so we can have a conversation. And I'm going to paraphrase this. It's a great question. But basically, you've got, the staunch Democrats and staunch Republicans. Will they be able to sleep soundly the night of an election? All right. So in other words, people are really worried about this election, and let's take that a little further. If this election has divided families, it's divided congregations, and so it's a difficult time. Yet when we look around this Zoom setting, and I think we had over 100 sign up. When you look around, we probably know enough of each other to say, but I really like everybody. I love them. So it's how can we possibly say that we're like, what's the reaction? So there's a question on, are we going to be able to verify the vote, and should we do away with the electoral college? But I always like to retreat, and that's why I'm getting to why I love my job for the past 33 years of teaching. Within our community, we get along really well. And the reason why perhaps we all have that great affection for UNK is that we can find the common ground much easier than we can at the national level. And I think if we're cut off in the middle of the Zoom, if one of my friends Zoom bombs us, we at least know when we look around the screen that we had a lot of close friendships with each other, with others in our community. And that's my hope. So when someone said, will you be able to sleep? That was a great question. And I guess I find encouragement that we can revisit the Aristotelian notion of civic friendships and ultimately find common ground. And so that's one of my starting points. And so with that, we don't even have to talk about the presidential election. I think the homework question that I relayed to Trish, what has been your favorite election? And we have a variety of ages on the screen. So when you think about ideal elections, that what we can hold out, anybody want to volunteer their favorite election? And I know mine, so I'm just going to be quiet for a while, but I know mine, and I'm not going to tell you it probably.
I'll volunteer mine.
Hey, Justin, how you
Justin
doing?
Long. I'm doing well, thank you. Mine was actually John McCain and Obama, and it was because I went to bed that night not really caring who won, because I thought both of them were good candidates, and the country would be okay. The respect that John McCain showed, I don't know if you remember that clip from like a town hall when a woman was berating Obama or saying that he was a Muslim or saying something incorrect about him. And then McCain coming back and saying, no, he's a good man. I mean, that really resonates with me with like let's be civil about this. And I miss that a little bit. But that was definitely a highlight election for me.
And Justin, do we all kind of want to know? I mean, I know Justin went to Grand Island Northwest. I had a terrific jump shot when he was an undergraduate at UNK. is a graduated from the University of Minnesota Law School. I mean, I shouldn't know all this stuff, but just like I know that Tracy Bradford was in one of my first classes, and so you want to fill your, we all want to know each other. What are you doing?
Well, I'm still in Minnesota. My family lived up here before we moved back to Nebraska, and I always loved the bike trails and the nature. And I think the cold winters makes everyone really appreciate when the weather is nice. And so we're all getting outdoors. And now with the pandemic, being limited to being inside when it's cold out, not being able to enjoy places that are outdoors, it's going to be a little tricky. But since graduating University of Minnesota, I've been working with Thomson Reuters. So we provide legal research services for law firms. It's been really interesting the last few years with analytics and trying to predict how a judge will rule. And that's what we're working on now with artificial intelligence and machine learning, and the tools that we have now versus, it's hard to believe it's 20 years ago when I started going to law school, 2000, graduated in 2003. But the technology that we have is amazing, and definitely double-edged sword. The more technology we have, whether it's beneficial or a detriment. And I think we're seeing that with social media and the like as well. As we talk about elections, and information is great, but what is the quality of the information that we're getting?
Yeah, it's not like sitting around talking with a bunch of great UNK alumni. There are a couple other people announced their favorite, and I'll call out Rochelle because it's. Can I share that, Rochelle? Where are you? Can you raise your hand?
Sure. Yeah.
You mind? I mean, I'm glad you focused on a non-presidential election, just because there's so many elections. So have at it.
Well, it's been a while, so I don't know how much I remember, but I just remember that I lived in CTE, and it was my first election, and I was so proud that I could go vote, and I really liked him. He was our governor. It was a feel good kind of a thing, and I don't know that I felt that good ever since. Especially presidential. It's, there's the elections are just so negative.
Yeah, so that's great, and others chimed in on that same one, and just to break, whenever I think we need to break, serious conversation, I've got some profound trivia for you, and let's go to the only president that did not have a political party. Can anyone name that president?
Washington.
Yeah, very good. And so let's go further, because my favorite dentist is on the screen too, and I won't call him out. Hi, Dr. Holmes. And so
I remember the 72 election. I was 18, so yeah.
Yeah, I
McGovern
remember my
Nixon.
18 one too. And so at George Washington's inauguration, poor George only had one tooth. Various times he wore dentures made of human teeth, animal teeth, ivory, and lead. Smart guy, but never wood. But now we can move on back to favorite elections. A couple more, and then we'll work our way through the.
Mine was definitely 2008 Obama. I'm Ashley. I graduated in 2005, but I was living in New York City then, and just the energy after the election, the positivity, it just felt like it united the city at that point. And then I was lucky enough to be able to go to DC for the inauguration too. And that is just something I don't think I'll ever forget, the feeling of being in DC at that time.
Great. How about we do two more, and then we'll go. Well, these are great. I mean, see, these are so. If it is being taped, and see, our current students need to know that you all had favorite elections, and you're offering just brilliant narrative to encourage them to be part of the process. So can we keep going? It's really great.
I think
Doc-
Cynthia wanted to speak. Sorry.
Hello. Yeah, when I saw the question, I admit I did not have a favorite election. That might not surprise Dr. Longo, but I have two that popped into mind. At the risk of sounding too cheesy, I had two friends who were student body president at UNK, and I got to help with both of theirs. So that was pretty fun. And then I have to admit that not favorite, but I was fascinated, I guess, about the most recent election in 2016. I guess looking back, I feel like I'm a better political science student than I was when I was in college. And thinking about it from just sort of a political behavior perspective was endlessly fascinating to me, and thinking about the reasons that folks voted the way they did, and sort of how they got to that point in making that decision.
And if you all must know, Cynthia wrote a brilliant undergraduate research paper that was quoted in the World Herald, pointing out that when you're running for election during droughts, people don't like you, right, Cynthia?
Yes. Oh, that was fascinating. That one would put you to sleep for sure.
That was just last year.
Yeah.
He's now legal counsel for Washburn University. So I don't know how that happened.
It's a wonder.
Dr. Longo?
Yes, Noad, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I am so happy. This is. I mean, why don't we do this every night, huh?
Listen, if we did this every week or every month, I think you'd have tons of students sign up for this. You could have each professor in poli-sci do a different night.
Well, no, it'd be putting everyone to sleep every night. Get a dose of Longo and I'm fast asleep.
Well, I have to say, I think my favorite election was actually 2004, because I was able to be in Paris at that time with my State Department internship, and it was all thanks to UNK that I was there. But being able to see democracy in action overseas was pretty impressive. I think more French wanted the former Secretary of State to win rather than George Bush. It was pretty funny to see all the signs at NW. But having said that, it was amazing how civil the turnover was. And it just, even though the country was, it was still very political with Kerry and George W. Bush, it was still very civil. And I think a lot of people miss that. But you don't realize how much our elections impact people overseas. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people forget about.
That's very good. And Noad was from Lexington, Nebraska. And I remember when she was checking out, she goes, I really want to go to DC someday. And we go, okay, that'll happen. And where are you living?
Manassas, Virginia. I work in Washington, DC at the Department of State.
Okay, so, and you can, Sarah's there's a lot from DC. So you all ought to get together.
Well, I proudly display my loper, and nobody ever knows what it is. So it's always fun to explain.
Well, yeah, and so you raise a really good point, and it's been raised in the questions, and I think we all worry about that. So let's switch it just a little bit. And yeah, I'm an old guy, so I'm not real coordinated reading all the chat questions. But I urge all of us to read those. I mean, some really interesting insights on favorite elections. So thanks for engaging on the chat. I'm going to change it just a little bit. And, how are we going to restore the civil conversation? I mean, I've gone to alumni events. I love it. I've never heard a harsh word uttered at an alumni event. In my classrooms, students are very polite. They say hi. It's a little more difficult. I'm trying to start something new, and that is the Nebraska wave, because people, they don't want to say hi. So I'm thinking, as you go by someone, the 1 or 2 finger, and I'm so pleased that I'm up to a count. I've been urging this for 2 months now. I've seen 5 students give me the 1 or the 2 finger. I'm afraid they gave me a different finger after one of the test. That's all right. We still honor the First Amendment. But how are we going to restore that? And so I'm turning to all of you because, yeah, so have at it.
Come on.
Hey, Dr. Longo,
Hi, Tiffany. I didn't know you were in Grand Island.
Yeah,
You with Dr. Murdoch there, yeah.
I said, hey.
I recall I had you in Poli-Sci 110 at night class in then Founders Hall, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And so have at it.
So that
How are we
was
going to
one of
restore
my
the
questions.
conversation?
Yeah, well, just having kids, and now we have our oldest son is a 6th grader. We have friends with kids in the high school. Like, it feels like the civil discussions are not happening at a very, very young age. And so there is no, you can't talk about politics, you can't talk about political parties, you can't, and if you do, there are really devastating repercussions, you know, socially and everything like that. So I didn't know if you're seeing that from incoming freshmen. I feel like it used to be, and I taught high school for a number of years too, where you could present both sides of the story and have an open discussion and understood that people disagreed, and you leave the classroom and that's where it ended. But it feels like the discussion is unable to happen at a very young age. So I'm wondering how that civil, you know, conversations are going to be happening at this point if we can't teach our kids to do it.
Yeah, well, so we turn to your fellow alumni. What do you think? How are we going to do that?
Well, I try to have conversations with my grandchildren, and unfortunately, even they seem to see some of the animosity that's going on between people. And I have to admit that even my bias comes through to them.
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult in this day and age, and I'm not quite sure why we've begun to go down that road as quickly as we have just over the last few years.
Yeah, we sat through and watched with our two oldest boys the debates and talked through things, and then we'd say, don't say anything about this tomorrow at school. Don't say anything, because it was like one of these, you're gonna make somebody upset or somebody's gonna be upset with you, and it just seems like there's a lot of animosity where you can't even say anything one way or another. So I'm just wondering where it's gonna even out. I mean, if that's a good way to say it.
Yeah, that's, I mean, and see, there's the disconnect for me when I go and see all of you and hang out with the current generation of UNK students. We do get along, and so I mean that's just, I mean, so encouraging. And then you know, one of my colleagues said today that she was not going to watch any more news until after the election. But she too is one, she loves her classes, you know, that loves the students. And so somehow we have to figure out how to have our local kindness and love transcend to the national conversation, right? So I'm back to you, Tiffany. How are we going to do that? You're going to start in Grand Island? That's where you're at now?
Right. We're doing our best, but even just teaching our kids, you know, like we'll have hands, we're going to respect everybody's hands, and you know, things like that. But yeah, I don't have any answers. I'm wondering if maybe it's better in other places, maybe it's local meeting. But I kind of don't.
A lot of work. On the screen, I think I see 2 or 3 past UNK presidents. Am I right? Yeah. So, any of you want to speak up? How did you cast the conversation so that people on campus, could see who you were and your values. You can't avoid eye contact. I can see you. I know where you live. Well, I'll start with the first one I see. Nate. Hey,
Yeah.
Nate.
How are you?
I am so happy. I mean, the only thing that would make me happier is if we're all doing this at, Cunningham's like we usually do, right? But on the other hand, we did everyone from all four corners of the United States. So there's a real positive to this.
And
you want to reflect on your days
I think this is cyberbullying, isn't it?
Am I cyberbullying?
Calling on people directly?
All right, I won't do that.
No, I'm really enjoying the conversation. I almost want to ask a follow-up question of when did it get derailed? Because you asked, what did we do previously or whatever. I feel like it was just so much less effort. I see Alex Stratman's comment that we need to treat each other better. It's so true, and I think he mentions the online piece of all this, but I can't put my finger on when did it get so difficult? Like what to the folks that have seen more of these elections, what do you point to? I mean, I don't know.
The data points to like in the 90s, we started losing it, which means that if the conversation is turned nationally, what does that mean for everybody in college right now? What have they experienced? They've only experienced this really hard-hitting conversation, as opposed to if you can guess two of my favorite political characters, yeah, I will give everyone $5 and you get an A for tonight's seminar. You have 5 seconds to post it. Time's up. And so here we go. Bob Dole. So you write down Bob Dole, and I always have a tendency to spell his first name backwards. And then George McGovern. George McGovern was a Democrat. Bob Dole, Republican. Bob Dole's still alive. George is not. But they found common ground, and the common ground was we grow a lot of stuff here on the Great Plains, and there's a lot of hunger in the world. Let's figure out how to feed people. Now that's a nice way to have a conversation. So if we go, and Tiffany's mentioning her young children, like common ground, see how are we going to find the common ground? I mean, how could you say it's a good idea for people to starve? And so Bob Dole and George McGovern got together. So Nate, that's a great, follow-up is I think somehow we have to figure out how to point out that we still need to figure out how to take care of the hungry and how to take care of each other when we're sick. That group of freshmen, I have a freshman health policy, it's a portal course. But you know what? Every single one of them said they would take care of me even if I didn't have insurance. They're going to be great healthcare providers. In other words, they said, let's skip the politics. They would even take care of me if I didn't have insurance, which is pretty amazing, right? And so that's what I think we need to figure out is, and that's why I put a big plug in for the College of Arts and Science. You've got to have a broad education. You have to understand the importance of differences and the importance that you can find common ground. And there's a plug for the College of Arts and Science where you're educated and you understand that there's uncertainty. So I frequently, like when students feel like they can't get political science, happened the other night. This student said, this stuff's a little over my head. And I said, yeah, and you're a pre-med major. And if you don't mind, Matt, did you make it through organic chemistry? And he said, yeah, I got an A. And I go, well, I probably would fail it. So in other words, once we recognize that we have all these different talents, then we're going to have a much better political conversation. And then you have to also be humble and recognize your failures. And I got a lot of failures. all right? And so, but I can put people to sleep. I do know that with great certainty. So I mean, that's what I'm hopeful for. And this is why to do an alumni event is just really encouraging, because you're all out there contributing to the welfare of our communities. And that's the disconnect, right, Nate? You say, how can we not, it used to be so easy to have that conversation. That question again, you know, how are you going to sleep the night before or the night after? I'm still hopeful that we can find some common ground.
Dr. Longo, I got a question for you.
Question.
Hey, it's Marty Gutowski here in San Diego. How are you, sir?
Marty, how are you doing out in San Diego?
We're
my screen right now, I'm looking at Andrea from, are you in Sioux City still, or? And then I see Jeff Small. Jeff, I haven't seen you in ages. Are you in Denver?
I actually,
You don't have to answer.
no, I work in Washington, D.C. as well.
Oh, another, gosh, I guess. All right,
Yes.
so Marty, where are you at, Marty? I see the,
Yep, right here.
My screen is.
No worries. There's
All right.
there's no face. I'm just audio. But yeah, no, we're obviously staying busy. It's you know, we had a campaign that should have been a year that got condensed into about 6 weeks, so we're all over the country. But I guess the point I wanted to make is sometimes I'm, you know, more of a realist, but part of me is an optimist in that I think the vast majority of Americans do have those conversations without any issues, and that unfortunately in today with social media and the media, we cover the fringes. I've worked 4 presidential campaigns as part of my job, and I've talked to everybody across the country.
Can I pause right there, Marty? What is it you do? Can you tell everyone?
Yeah, I'm a Secret Service agent. And I've had those conversations with everybody at, you know, crazy times when I was at the White House and beyond, civil unrest and so forth. And I never had one poor conversation or one inkling where I couldn't ask what they were thinking and, you know, listening and so forth, and giving our opinions and having that civil discussion. So I don't think we're as far off as we think we are. I just believe that is the way that things are projected to us. Unfortunately, you know, media back in our day was 30 minutes with 20 minutes only, you know, you had 10 minutes of commercials. You had to get your point across. Now with, you know, 24/7 news media, well, you can still create an issue, you know, well into, you know, the next day if something, everything's breaking news every 30 seconds. And I just think, again, that, you know, we need to continue to have the discussions. I think, you know, everything we have and we see in politics is cyclical, whether it's 4 more years of this current administration or a new administration. It's cyclical, and depending on where you come from, you start to see, you know, hey, we all have a side that we take. But, you know, in the end, I think most of us are having those conversations, and what gets portrayed in the media is the far and extreme fringes that really don't represent what most people think. But, you know, I'd be curious to know what anybody else, you know, thinks about that, given that we're all over the country and what your experiences have been.
I can chime in just really quick, Marty. I want to mention something. So the media, yeah, they do take extremes, but I do want to mention that the executive order on diversity and inclusion is actually extremely dangerous, and I am getting impacted by that. And I do want to mention that the executive order actually lists a phone number that people can call and call in their colleagues who they think are violating that order. So I do hate to say it, but in Washington, D.C., we are seeing the dark underbelly. We are seeing people reporting on people. The civil conversations in the government, it is very dangerous. I'm not trying, there are concerns that people are talking about civil war. I want to be hopeful, but I am concerned that the media is being accurate in some respects, that we want to believe it's the fringes, but how much are the fringes going to take over if their candidate doesn't get elected? Appreciate comments.
Well, I don't know if I'm moderator anymore. And see, so we have a real hopeful message from San Diego, and Noah has a less than hopeful one, which is why I printed off this trivia right now. And so I think it's time for a little bit of trivia. And we're going to figure out still how we can get to that.
Sorry to jog down the conversation, Dr. Longo.
No, this is good. I think we're recognizing that, right? Yeah, because I'm getting a feed that I only have a couple more minutes, and I worked on this trivia, really important. So William Taft was a rather famous president, and he was famous for what?
Big.
He's big. Yeah, he couldn't get out of the bathtub. But he owned the last presidential cow.
He brought Teddy Roosevelt out of retirement.
Yeah, good, Alex. All
He was
right.
a Supreme Court justice.
So let me give you another one. All right. Who was before? How old was Ronald Reagan? And was he
68?
How old was he when he was elected? How old?
68.
Close, 69. And he was the oldest person at that time ever elected president. So he's just a young guy compared to the two ones we have right now. Gerald Ford, you all like Jerry Ford? He held his daughter's prom at the White House, so you can't argue against a guy like that. And I raise all this trivia because I kind of knew we would have some serious conversation, which we've had, and it's been a very enlightening. But I find the trivia as an important reminder that it's not like we're electing Platonic guardians. Only philosophers do that. They don't elect them, they appoint fellow philosophers. And so, we're still talking about the human condition. And so when you have Noad's concern, and then you have Marty's optimism, we're still human beings. That's another plug for the College of Arts and Sciences, where you have a literature course next to organic chemistry. And so that means all of you are so well educated by other people from UNK because you have an understanding of the complexity and richness of the human condition. And somehow we'll have to take our understanding of what it means to do good work in a community and take it to the broader national scene. So that's why I kind of hold out I view George McGovern and Bob Dole. They were trying to figure that out. And Justin started it by pointing out McCain's reaction to President Obama. So those are all good things. And as a long-term educator, it's so important to have examples of virtuous actions rather than actions that bring us down. So I appreciate all the contributions. I could ramble on all night. This is great. I mean, I'm all fired up. I probably won't get to sleep until, I don't know, tomorrow. But speaking of one last bit of trivia on sleep, let me give you one more. Well, I've got so many. I've got like 4 pages of this, but just realize that Calvin Coolidge would regularly take 2-hour naps and usually had at least 10 hours of sleep a night. So that's someone to kind of admire a little bit. But so you look at this again. I like looking at this trivia, and you wonder, why do I like it? We're dealing with human beings, and that's not a bad place. And I like all the examples of other elections than the presidential ones, because school bond issues are so important to communities, senatorial elections. So I thank you all for being so actively engaged, and I'll be quiet now. Thank you. Great seeing you all. Thank you so much for putting up with me.
I think we should give him a round of applause. You can unmute if you'd like to do that. Lucas.
Hey, I'm Vice President of Alumni Relations and Development. My good friend, Peter Longo, you can confirm this for me, Peter, but I think there's a significant day tomorrow that you might be associated with. Is it your birthday by chance?
Every day is a birthday for me. I celebrate every single day. I mean, again,
Well,
I just can't, I look at all the generations of students. I'm so overwhelmed. So yeah, it's my birthday tomorrow.
Well, happy birthday. Happy 39.
Happy birthday.
You look great. We love you and we're glad you did this. And I think it's really cool. We talk about the division and the challenges we have, but the unity with this group, I mean, it's kind of cool when you think about we've got people all over the country that are united by their bond to UNK, Kearney State, any Kearney State teachers out there. But point is, we're all Lopers together, and I think it's kind of cool to do this. And there was a request for what's the next one of these we're going to do. We'll talk about that because I think this sold pretty well. Might be a few people who missed it who want to come back on. Things at UNK are going well, and we're surviving the pandemic, I think, very, very well by standards. When you get reports that there's 30 cases basically that are being tracked among 6,000 students and staff. You hear in the news that universities are all struggling, and that's just simply not true. We're doing very well here. We've got a new building, Discovery Hall, which we opened here at the beginning of the semester. They'll replace that Otto Olson. Some people might have some sentiment for Otto Olson, but I'm here to tell you that Discovery Hall is just a little nicer. So I hope you can physically see it. And if you want to, you can look on our UNK Alumni Association Facebook page, and you can find a virtual tour for that if you're interested. We've got a new Nebraskan scholarship, and this is really important for people who don't live in the state of Nebraska, but basically we've got one American tuition rate, no more out-of-state tuition beginning next fall. So that's a great selling point. And if you want to help further with recruitment of students, you can join the DREAM team, where you've got an organized program now for alumni to get involved with the recruitment of students, and that's the lifeblood of the institution. So we're hopeful that we'll have your support of that and consideration of being involved. Talk about a whole lot of different things, the physical changes to the campus, the quality of the instruction's as good as it's ever been. UNK 6th ranked in U.S. News and World Report in the 12-state Midwest region. That's a big deal. And the chancellor would tell you he wouldn't stake his reputation to a magazine, but those are opinion leaders, and we're number 6. Pretty darn good. So there's plenty of good stuff going on. There's a lot to celebrate. We wish we could bring you all back to campus. So many of you live in Kearney. You get to see it on a regular basis. There's fences up all the time because we're building new stuff, and it's pretty exciting to be a part of it. So we're really glad you joined us this evening. We always wish we could do this in person, and we'll get back to that. The flip side is we can't always have an alumni event with people that live in DC, with people who live in San Diego and Kearney too. So we'll continue to do things like this, but we'll look forward to shaking your hand and celebrating with you in person. So with that, Trish, is there anything else?
No, just thank you all so much for coming. So good. Sorry, I'm going to give a plug for my Kyo sisters out there. So many of you on there. Thank you so much for being part of this. Thank you so much, Dr. Longo. I know everybody really enjoyed their time with you, and continue to share your story about UNK and share that with potential Lopers, and continue to be an advocate for your university.
Well, thanks, everybody. Best wishes. All right. So nice to see you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.